Hello, YGO Strats here. It's that time of the year again where we all get together to share and spend time together and talk to one another. I'm of course talking about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list season. That is right, 3 or 4 times of the year the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community comes together to call each other idiots and complain about all various aspects of the game, justified or otherwise. And most importantly, talk about how we as individuals know what everyone else must accept as the fix to the problems of this game. Now, I'll have my own ban list video up, I'm sure, soon enough at some point, but today I want to talk about one card in specific. And if you are one of the very special Yu-Gi-Oh! Players gifted with the ability to read, you know what card I'm talking about from the title of this video. Yata Garasu is a very special card in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh's history, as it played no small part in one of the most infamous locks in all of the game. And for the uninformed, a very brief summary: if you could get a Witch of the Black Forest or a Sandgan onto the board without having to use your normal, so maybe something like Call the Haunted or Monster Reborn, and then summon and use the effect of Chaos Emperor Dragon, Envoy of the End, you would get rid of your opponent's entire field, their entire hand, and your Sandgan or Witch would proc, and you'd be able to search Yata Garasu, which could then be normal summoned, attack directly, and once its effect activates, your opponent would not get to draw. Yata Garasu shuts off the draw phase, if you aren't aware of that. And in 2004, where graveyard effects weren't really a thing, this was pretty much a guaranteed death sentence. 9 out of 10 times at minimum, if the Yata lock could go off, whoever got Yata locked lost the duel. The lock was so horrible and common enough that Konami created the ban list. They had already had a limited list at this point in the game, but the Chaos Boss monsters from Invasion of Chaos, a pretty fitting set name if I say so myself, and Yata Garasu are what made Konami draw a line in the sand and say outright, just no more of this bullshit, you're not playing these cards. That was in 2004. That's 18 years ago by the time this video comes out, and times have changed. Just as Green Day's American Idiot is no longer all the rage, those same power cards just aren't what they once were. Sandgan and Witch of the Black Forest both got erratas that make it so you can't activate the effect of whatever monster you search on the turn you search them. Chaos Emperor Dragon was errated to make it so you can't use any effects other than its effect on the turn you use it. And BLS, just as an extra fun fact, because it didn't play a part in the lock, but it was a pretty powerful and strong card at its time, it has never gotten an errata. It's just currently playable at 3, but the game is so far beyond 2004 that nobody plays it anyways. The game's evolved, and despite all of these changes to its fellow ban list buddies, Yata Garasu remains banned. It is the single longest lasting card on the ban list today. But should it be? A big part of this debate can be tied in and compared to some of the debates that go around Yu-Gi-Oh! To this day, just in terms of solving the problem. As is the case with Yata Garasu, there are things like Verte. Is Verte the problem, or are the monsters that Verte summons out the problem? Should you hit Verte, or should you hit Dragoon? We could talk about DPE, but that's its own video entirely, so for this argument's sake, I'm just going to focus on Verte and Dragoon. Verte gives plenty of decks access to that extra fusion Omni Negate on top of already strong boards. Phantom Knight is a meta competitor that definitely could play Dragoon. Adamancipator, plenty of decks that are rogue to meta or tiered in some way, can already make strong boards on their own, and then can also just throw down a Verte at the end of the combo for an extra Omni Negate, indestructible, untargetable dingus, for lack of a better term. And Verte is the only reason they have access to it, so maybe we should just get rid of Verte and that problem's solved. But you can also make the argument that Verte gives strength to just fusion decks in general, and lets them access their fusions if they don't hard draw into it. I mean, hell, B-Trooper could technically make Verte and send like 3 Resonance Insects and a Goki Pole to the grave to make a Diet Towers and search a card and set up the grave for future plays and all that sorts of stuff. Don't laugh. They could do it. You could make that play in B-Trooper. You really shouldn't make that play, but you could. It's a possibility. So, hit Verte or not? Well, there's other options too. Why not just hit Red Eye's fusion? Players will make the argument, why should a deck like Red Eyes or Dark Magician lose access to a very strong boss monster in the form of Dragoon just because other decks are abusing it? And I'm not going to sit here and say there's a right answer one way or the other. There's just a debate to be had. You have your own take, I have mine, Farfa has his, and you can watch it on Stevie's channel. It's the way the world works. All these points can realistically be made about Yata as well relative to its, compatriots on the ban list. Is Yata the problem card? Some might say clearly. It shuts off an entire phase of the game. One of your 6 phases is done when Yata has gotten its effect off. And that's limiting the way you can play the game. That's a big, we play the game to play the game. It's shutting off a very key component of it. But it's only really strong after an effect like Chaos Emperor Dragon, right? Especially put into the context of modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Players will often call the graveyard a second hand, and plenty of decks have 2-card or even 1-card starters that can put up negates and or beaters by themselves, even if you didn't get a draw phase that turn. If you have Sword Soul Taya, say, in your hand and any Sword Soul or Worm in the grave, Yata probably won't matter if its effect went off. And that's a pretty weak modern example, in all honesty. I'm sure there's plenty of more powerful and likely scenarios where a skipped draw phase won't be what makes or breaks a duel. And there's not much debate about the cards around Yata like there is about Dragoon. Chaos Emperor Dragon and Sand Ganon Witch, as I've already mentioned, have erratas and have effectively removed them from the competitive game, not to mention removed them from ever being abused by Yata again. The case can be made that it can come off. There are infinitely more impactful normal summons across this game's history. Granted, it's almost a guarantee that Konami would errata it before they did. They felt the need to errata Goyo Guardian in 2017 for literally no reason. I personally hate this errata more than I should. Why does it need an Earth? Regardless, Yata would definitely be on the block for an errata. But that kind of ruins the card, doesn't it? All these insanely powerful cards in the game's history, Ring of Destruction, Chaos Emperor Dragon, Crush Card Virus, all made virtually unplayable by their erratas, and kind of tarnishing their legacy. It's pretty funny telling a new player Crush Card Virus is so insane, and then having to explain to them that it was before the errata, and when the game was slower and less negate focused, and, back when the card was actually good. But if you've played against full power Crush Card Virus in those formats, you know that feeling in your gut of just, come on, whenever they flip that Crush card on you. And it's always with their Sangan. Like, why you gotta plus this hard on me, dude? Fuck off. But back on point, I'm of the opinion that erratas are kinda lame. I much prefer retrains. New cards that are a spin on an old classic. Something like Pot of Desires or Pot of Extravagance are realistically kind of just erratas of Pot of Greed. It's just a means of giving the card a cost as opposed to it being a straight +1. But because they're new cards, they can be both a callback to the original power draw and add to the ongoing history of the game. A legacy to it, if you will. Personally, I prefer that Yata would stay banned, in all honesty. Mostly for the legacy of the card. I'm also just kind of the opinion that even if it's rare as hell and it's really not going to make an impact on the vast majority of games, a situation like the one Yata creates, where you're locked out of an aspect of the game, just isn't really that fun for anyone playing it. Anyone who's played this game can think of a time when you were pretty much done for, you were screwed, you had lost, and then you just skill draw the top card of your deck, and it's a power card, and you turn it around. Hell, go watch the progression series and just see how many times Simo can do it with like Snatch Steal alone. Don't even count Pot of Greed or Regeki or any other DM staple. The number of times that man has drawn Snatch Steal and won a game is frightening. And that's a core part of the game, and one that shouldn't be able to be removed. Even if I can agree that in modern Yu-Gi-Oh's terms, something like Yata can connect and, not really matter. I just think the game is more fun for all parties if it can never reach a state where you lose a core part of it. That's my take. Yata Garasu is an interesting one. the banned card. It's left its mark on the game. It gave us all the ban list in the first place, so we don't need to worry about facing ridiculously overpowered and one-sided floodgates. Things like Vanity's Emptiness, or Royal Oppression, or Imperial Order. Oh wait. Fuck this card. Fucking hate IO. I've covered a few points in this video, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on the card. Do you think the card can come off the list? Would it need an errata? Would you be upset if it got an errata? Feel free to leave a comment. I'd like to hear people's thoughts on it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I have been YGOstrats, and this was the legacy of Yata Garasu. Hey, it's the name of the video, baby.